Dear Reiner, good to hear you. And I'm so glad and happy that we can have our phone calls again. And as I'm approved in the system that you can call me, I'm also allowed to interview you and you're allowed to attend this interview. How are you doing and what's the newest that's happening to you?
Actually, I'm doing pretty good. Now that my communication rights have been restored, I feel that I am once again a real person, because if you can't communicate, you're not really a real person. You know, humans are social beings, and it includes, of course, communicating with each other. And in that respect, the fact that I was denied to freely talk to my people, to my family, to my wife, was a grossly illegal mistake. And that means that anyone who's in pretrial detention, instead of being free and being able to defend yourself in freedom against criminal charges, anyone who's in pretrial detention must be treated the very same way as those who can defend themselves against criminal charges from outside the prison. And that's a major mistake that most people don't seem to understand, not even in the system. They don't seem to understand that there's a difference between pretrial detention and having, after your sentence becomes final, having to serve your sentence because you have been finally sentenced. That is especially important when it comes to someone like me. I'm an attorney, and I know how to defend myself. I know how to write briefs, and I know how to make motions. And that means that I am a vital part of my own defense. Of course, I can't do it without the others, without the other attorneys, but I do have an important input because I have much more experience than most of the people who have been working with me. That doesn't mean that I'm trying to be a blowhard or anything. It's just a fact. It's a fact that I've been in this system for over 30 years as a trial lawyer. And to cut someone like me off from communicating, even with my attorneys, because a couple of days ago, we had a little bit of a, let's say, argument about whether or not I can have legal books in here. Well, most people can't, because there's a very simple reason. They say, nah, you can't have that because there is a danger that your cell is being set on fire. Well, I don't know how real the danger is, but when it comes to me as an attorney who has an important role in his own defense, then it, of course, makes a lot of sense that I do get the books that I need in order to write my own briefs, just as I would be able to do outside of prison. That's the major problem. You cannot, and that's what they're using, what many judges in this country here are using pretrial detention for. They're using it to break you so that you won't be able to defend yourself. And you're totally dependent on your defense lawyers who try your case. So in that sense, this is a major, major step in the right direction. And I do think this is only the first of maybe 2 or 3 steps, and then it's all over.
Yeah, I cannot even imagine how that feels for you now that you can call your wife and that you can call your friends and family, and you can also speak with journalists. So, what is one thing that you'd like in the first place to let the world know? What is one thing that, okay, so this is what the world must know right here, right now? What is one thing?
In this exact frame that I'm in right now, not maybe in a couple of months or so, or maybe a few months ago, these are the final steps, as I said before. This is the last leg of this journey through this totally corrupt system, which is so obvious to everyone now, not just the German system, but all of the other EU systems as well, Western EU at least, Western EU countries at least. In this very moment, we have to be extremely careful not to make any mistakes, not to let ourselves be drawn into like arguments, for example, because they're going to try anything they can to make anything that happens, any minor problem that might occur, or me getting into an argument with someone that they may even provoke. They're going to try and use it, not the people here who run this show. It's the other people. It's those who are running the show behind the scenes who are pulling the strings. They're going to try and do anything in order to cut off my communications once more. This will not last, of course, but we don't need that. We should not allow them to get the better of us by provoking us into doing something that, even though it doesn't make a difference, they may use in order to create a major problem for us. That's the most important thing right now. Other things, in a more general frame, the most important thing that I would always say to anyone after this experience here, do never give up. Do not ever give up. If you're right, you're right. Nothing can change that. Nothing can change it. Just stay the course, stay calm, and do what you have to do by using both your brain and your heart. And then you're almost home free.
Wow, really, what a journey. What a journey. So, with your thinking and all the things that you now know, but you did not know on October 11th, 2023, what would be your message to the younger version of you to October 11, 2023? What would you tell your younger self?
Well, October 11th, 2023 was the day when I was abducted by the Germans, as the Mexicans told me, and as they will testify in court if it ever needs to be done. But there's another thing that also needs to be taken into consideration, and that's the fact that on September the 2nd, 2022, I was betrayed by the people who I trusted. Well, I didn't really trust them. I should have trusted myself and my wife, of course, because we always knew that those people who then betrayed me on the 2nd of September of 2022 were, well, I need to phrase it in such a way as to not put myself in danger. But we always knew that these people had a serious problem and that you really cannot trust them. I just thought that it wouldn't make a difference because I was literally running the show. So, to answer your question, I should have been much more careful before I engaged with these people. And the second time around, when I was betrayed by these very people, by the way, they first betrayed me by claiming that I had committed a crime, which I never did, in order to virtually deliver me to the deep state. That is the German Domestic Intelligence Service and those parts of the judiciary that are totally corrupt. And the Göttingen judiciary, at least its criminal justice system, is definitely corrupt. I mean, I'm not the first person who says this, but this has been on the news, this has been on CBS, this has been reported on by New York Times, and also by Elon Musk. So much more careful the second time around when they approached me in order to pay back the money that they had stolen from me, 1.58 million euros. And I thought we would be able to get to a settlement. I should not have trusted them. And as I much later found out through the prosecution's case file, it was them who simply pretended to want to settle the dispute between myself and them so that I would get my money back and they would be able, together with my former co-host, they would be able to get to the gold, which should never have happened. But I was in survival mode at that point. I was still working. I was still trying to get out the message about the pandemic. I was paying for it with my own money, by the way, by that time. So I thought, hey, this is going to save me some time. I'm going to get my money back. They're going to get the gold. The public, the general public, will be so outraged when they understand what they have done by taking that money in order to buy whatever, Ferraris or whatever. Because that's what people do who have nothing. They need to buy something. They're materialistic because they have nothing else. They have no friends, they have no family, they have no one who likes them. So that's what they do. And so I thought, hey, this is the fast way out. I won't have to bother with them anymore. I'm going to get my money back. They can have the gold, and then they're going to implode. Well, I didn't know that they didn't just want the gold, but the only reason that they had entered into these settlement negotiations was that they wanted to deliver me to the deep state, who was pushing them, who they were working for. So that's the other thing that needs to be taken into consideration in my case. I was just way too naive, even though my gut instinct, even the first time they betrayed me, and Inca's brain plus gut instinct told us, you can't trust these people. And then I trusted them a second time. So that was totally stupid. And this will never, ever happen again.
Wow, what a ride. What a ride. So if you were to share two important nuggets of wisdom that you gained and, well, maybe expanded to during this time, that's certainly challenging and mind-boggling. And what would be these two important nuggets of wisdom that you'd share with the world, with humanity?
Two things. Two things. Yeah. Well, one, always take a close look. Never believe anything that anyone tells you. Always take a close look at what they're telling you. Respond to your gut instinct. If something sounds fishy, it probably is fishy. And then try to use your own reasoning. Again, it's not just the brain, it is also the heart and your gut instinct, of course. And if those three work together, then you can be pretty sure whether or not what you're being told is true or not. You can also pick on this and take your time. Just do not immediately believe what anybody tells you, especially not if they put you under pressure. If they tell you, oh, you need to decide immediately. Oh, you're going to die if you don't take the shot, that kind of thing. And the other thing is, this is what I learned in prison, it is usually not true, especially here in prison, where 90% of the prisoners, not just in this one, but also in the other one, are foreigners. It is usually not true that these people are our enemies. Many of them don't even know that they're being used as tools in order to destroy our society, in order to control us. Many of them do not know this, but most Germans in this particular case here. But of course, same story in England, same story in France, same story everywhere in the EU countries, except not in the US, where Trump is making sure that this will not ever happen again. But we're not there yet, especially here in Germany. This is probably the worst place in all of the EU countries, right after, even before the UK. So what I learned here is that in many cases, even though most of these people don't even speak German, most of them only came here from, places like Romania or Bulgaria or some other place for only one reason, for the purpose of professionally breaking and entering, stealing. That's all, nothing else. And when you ask them, what are you going to do when you get out of here? Oh, we're going to do the same thing all over again. Yes, right, because they don't know anything else. Most of them haven't even gone to school. Most of them have absolutely no education. It is very, very difficult, but you have to take a closer look at what is going on behind the scenes. This is only the facade. We're seeing a facade. We're seeing lots and lots of people who seem to be our enemies, but they're not. They shouldn't be here. That's a different story. But since they are here, we're going to have to deal with them. The worst way to deal with them is probably to keep them here and have them live on Social Security or whatever. That needs to be corrected. But your first reaction, not mine, but there's some Germans here. Most of these people, even though when I talk to them, all of them know exactly what it is like to live outside the system. And most of them have had interactions with people from other countries. And most of them also know that on an individual basis, things are totally different from what you see from the outside. And from the outside, it looks as though we have lots and lots of enemies here, but we really don't. But in order to correct this situation, it takes more than just putting them in jail. And it takes more than just deporting them. It requires a real understanding of have been brought into this country when the borders were opened on purpose in order to destroy our society. At first, most Germans were, of course, very happy to help because most Germans thought, oh, we're a rich country, we can afford this. These poor people, not really understanding that most of them were not really families. Many of them were young men who come from countries, war-torn countries, who have learned nothing but killing, for example. But people didn't understand that then. Even now, it is probably difficult to get people to understand this. But that's the real story. We know this. All of us know this. So despite the fact that many Germans now that they've really had it, because I think it cost something like 25 billion euros a year to support all those illegal aliens and others, whereas it would probably cost about $1 billion in order to fly them all back into their home countries. But the fact that all this money was paid for things, all this tax money was paid for things that are simply a deliberate waste of money in order to drive Germany into poverty. That's what's behind this. Because once you get people to understand or believe that this country is poor, they're easier to control. Mm-hmm. Just like, create a problem and then come up with a solution. Create the pandemic and then come up with a solution which is killing pretty much everyone off. This is the very same story. And that's the second, if you're asking for a nugget of wisdom, the second thing. You have to understand, you have to see the bigger picture. But it kind of ties in with the first nugget, which is take a close look and make a decision by using not just your brain, but also your heart and your gut instinct. Those are the two things, I believe.
Well, thank you for sharing. And I wanted to thank you for the wonderful postcard that you sent me recently. I'm all really tickled pink. I think that's what they say in the US, right? So I'm totally grateful that you and I, that we agree, and millions of people around the world, that together we are strong. And I'd like to read to you a quote from Hannah Arendt, where she says, "The death of human compassion is one of the earliest and most vivid signs of a culture that is on the verge of sliding into barbarism." Hannah Arendt.
Yeah, she's a very smart woman, and she survived not just the Second World War, but she survived the concentration camps. And to still, after all this horrific experience, to still be able to think straight and not give in to hatred, that's quite a feat, I think. A wonderful woman and a real hero to be admired.
Yeah, I do believe that there are many people now that are seeing it more and more clearly, that, of course, what you like to say in the many interviews that are recorded with the CIC and the ICIC is where you said divide et impera. And I truly believe when that divide et impera, when we just do no longer allow that to happen, and when we realize that we are many peaceful, loving, caring, creative humans, and we come together, that then really things can be very different. And when we allow others to have different opinions, maybe allow others to have different standards, but similar standards when it comes to integrity and honesty and respect, then I do believe that a lot can happen in a very different way in this world. Do you agree?
Absolutely. It's the divide and conquer approach that they've been using because that's the only approach they can use. We are so many more, and we are so much smarter than they are, that that's the only way to control us, by driving us against each other. Mm-hmm. And there's another, I think, pretty good example that makes it clear what this is all about. After, or even before the end of World War II, we now know that it was always the same people who financed both sides who actually profited from this. We all know that it wasn't just Hitler. It was all those who were giving him money, who were making him as crazy as possible. Most people know that he was full of drugs most of the time. But here's the real thing. Right after the war, just before the war ended, there's the story of Bletchley Park. Bletchley Park in England is a place where most people believe there's a character played by Benedict Cumberbatch. And he's the guy who broke the code, the Enigma code. That's what most people think when they hear of Bletchley Park. But that was only, 120 or 130 people or so. But the real thing that happened there were another, I don't know how many hundreds of people who worked only on one project, on how to break the Germans' spirit and make them feel guilty forever. And that's what they did. They did it through mind control techniques, by constant propaganda, et cetera, et cetera. And that's how you end up with politicians like our former Secretary of the Economy. You end up with Germans who hate themselves or hate themselves for being German, who actually say this out aloud in public and who say, I don't care how we're going to get the money out of this country, how we're going to take the Germans' money away, just as long as we take their money. Spend it on, bicycle trails in Peru, spend it on wars, for example, Ukraine. That's what these people do and say out aloud in public. And that's the result of constant propaganda. That is also divide and conquer. But this is all going to end because we now are onto them. We know what they've been doing. There's going to be very strange things that we have yet to learn about our history, how we've been lied to about pretty much everything. But once you see through the propaganda, their psychological maneuvering, once you see through this, everything changes. And the thing is, after you have gotten a taste of reality, you will not step back. You will keep going. That's why nobody can keep us from getting out the whole truth, out into the open. Sunlight, of course, is the best of disinfectants.
I agree with you. Thank you, dear Reiner, for your wisdom and sharing it so generously. And we're looking forward, of course, to have more conversations. I'm personally very, very thrilled and happy and very grateful that we can speak again. And I continue spreading the word for mindset, because I do believe that when humans are accepting and evolve in their mindset, then mindset evolution can absolutely make a big, big difference. And when we can be more humane with one another, I think that is when harmony is established way, way more than we have been able to see that. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart what you do for humanity, and many consider you a hero. And I know that you're doing your thing because that's what you know to do and how to do it best, because that's your calling and that's your purpose. I don't know. But thank you for what you're doing. And I see it in the thousands of comments that people are so appreciative of you. They pray for you, they meditate for you, they send you letters and postcards. They even send you empty postcards in their letters so that you can have postcards to send to other people. So I'm very, very grateful that you respond to as many as you can. And you're just a wonderful human being. And I do believe I'm right when I say that humanity thanks you absolutely for everything you do and the encouragement that you give.
That is probably my real task, to motivate people and stand up and not be afraid, because being afraid keeps you from doing the right thing. And just to make this clear, I am absolutely of the opinion that almost all of us humans, real humans, are good people. We're many more than the others. So I believe that the only way to live together is, of course, to live in peace. It is the only way. But you can't and must not forget the monsters. That's the other role that I have. I am the man with the sword, as my wife told me. And it makes sense, because every one of us has to do their own thing. Some do this, others do that. Some just spread the news. And it's not just spread the news, but that is a very, very, very important task, because once you do that, more people understand what's going on. I do that too. But the other thing I do is make sure that the monsters, which are not human, the monsters who have no empathy, that they will never, ever get a chance to do it again. Never, ever. No one will get away.
Well, so we will see. And thank you for all you're doing. And tell me one more thing. Tell us about Roland von Bremen.
That's the old story. When I was a little boy, I was, I don't know, 6 or so. This is in probably 1964 or 5, maybe. My father would take me and my sister. My brother wasn't even born then. He regularly gave us a tour of the city of Bremen, the center of the city of Bremen. Even much of it had been bombed by the Allied forces. And the most important place that he always took us to is the marketplace in Bremen, which is right where Roland the knight stands. And he's a knight with a sword and a shield. And there's a crippled person between his feet. And the way my father told this story, and I much later looked it up on Google, it could be true, is this. Roland the Knight, the story that a countess in Bremen, the Countess of Findorf, Findorff, had promised the people of the free city of Bremen. Bremen is one of the free cities. It was never ruled by anyone. And she decided that she would, as a gift to the people, donate a huge lot that people could make into a park later. But she said, I'm going to give you what a man can walk around, that piece of land that he can walk around in, 24 hours or so. But she chose the man, and he was a crippled person who could only crawl. And then they tried to, people who obviously were working for her, they tried to slow him down, even though he couldn't really walk. And that's when Roland came and protected him. And now we have, in the city of Bremen, we have this gigantic park, which is a really, really, really nice place. My father always told us, remember, this guy stands for justice and for freedom. And that's what the city stands for, and that's what its citizens stand for. This is what counts. This is what it's all about. And you know the reason why he's facing the dome, which is a gigantic church, is that he says, we are our own people. We do whatever we feel like doing. We try to do the right thing, but nobody tells us anything. Nobody. We bow to no one, not even the church. And that impressed me. And so I suppose that this is the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing. It always made a lot of sense to me. My father is someone who was never afraid of anything. And I admired him, actually. I could always blindly rely on him. But this is also true for my sister and brother, of course. But that is probably the reason why I later, after I got out of the Army, I had enlisted for 12 years, and then I got out after a year when I realized that these are the very same people who I do not want to give me orders, because many of them are just stupid. So that's when I decided this is how I got out of the Army, and then I remembered my father's words, and I decided to study law, and that's what I did. And here I am now.
Wow, what a nice story. One more question I do have, though. Thank you for sharing. So where do you gather your strength you have today? What is a great source for strength?
My strength is my belief in myself. I have never even for 1 second wavered and thought I'm not strong enough for this. I was surprised to see how strong I am, actually, but not for 1 second did I not believe in myself. And then when my mother died, it took a real effort for me not to break out in tears, not to break down. I'm probably saving this for the time when I get out. And this is not to say that this is the way you should act when a loved one dies, but it's the way I was forced to act, because if you show any weakness in here, you're not necessarily a dead person, but maybe you are. And that was especially hard. I will get over it. It'll take some time because I did get some hits below the belt line, below the waistline, so to speak. So I'm pretty sure I am traumatized to a certain degree, but I'm pretty resilient, so I will recover. And what is really, really of great help in this particular situation is this uncanny, this incredible international support I'm getting through all these cards and letters and people who are doing things for me, who are going to the embassies or write to the embassies or to the German government or now the American government. It's not really the government, it's individual people, but they are working for the government. This is the kind of force, the combined force, my own strength, which probably has always been there without me realizing it. So I was pretty reassured when I began to understand that nothing is going to break me, not even this fucking prison. The international support from so many real humans. I don't care about the others, but the real humans, they're the ones who really count. And if they connect, and that's what they've done, not just for me, but for themselves, for everyone, we're all in this together. This is the kind of thing that seems to actually be sending, as I said before, good vibrations to me. So it is incredible, but I usually, several times a day, there are quite a few inmates, fellow inmates here who are not just stupid idiots or not just criminals, but really nice guys, dependable, reliable guys. And so I joke around with them, and several times a day we break out into laughter, which is pretty incredible for the situation that I'm in. On the other hand, this is the last leg of this journey. So it's my own strength. It is the international support. It is the support by some very important people within the Trump government. And it is my grandmother, Emma, who taught me a lot of things, and my parents, of course. That's what it is. And my wife, I mean, is the most important thing in my life.
Yes, I know, and I respect that. And I most of all respect especially those people and those who help you, who respect Inka as your lady, because that shows their character. And I very much appreciate that. Yes, Inka is a very dear friend to me, but I'd always say that, yes, she's the most important in your life. And she's the only one who can give you what only she can give you. And that is so important. Yeah. And it's so important that you can speak again. So thank you so much for your time. I'm sure that you will share more along these days. And I know there will be the big celebration when we all come together for each other and strong. Thank you, Reiner. You're the best. And I know that many people, they send so much love for you. I wonder that the screen is not blinking up with all these beautiful emojis at this very moment. Thank you, Reiner. Talk soon. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.